What's up, beautiful people, to another episode of Pursuit of Destiny podcast. It's your boy, Ricky Jones Jr., and as always, I'm also excited to be before you all here today, whether it's by way of YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, or listening by way of Podbean or the other podcast platforms that you may be listening to this podcast on. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Especially if this is your first time listening or watching this podcast, I welcome you. My name is Ricky Jones Jr. We have so much fun together in which you can go back and listen to, or you can start now and go forward with, in which this whole idea behind this podcast, the whole idea behind this show is to help us to not just live life mundanely or just operationally or like mechanically, but to live life with destiny in mind, okay? And so on Tuesday, we talked about how, and the idea of, do we live life with the fullest potential if we pursue our passions or if we pursue purpose, right? So make sure you go back to that one. Make sure you go listen to that. Give me your thoughts on it by way of commenting, or hit me up in the DM on Instagram. Please do. And then let me out. We'll talk and converse, right? So do that, and we'll be good to go. It's been interesting to see things that have been said so far, but I'm even more interested to see what is to come, okay? And so as you saw by way of the title of this here video, we're gonna talk about reading today, y'all. And so even like I'm catching the flow behind this whole podcast scenario, being more like conversational and not so like, oh, let me give you all this information and it's a lecture, right? So it's growth, and that's the fun thing about doing things. You get to learn, you get to grow, and you get to experience not only me but also you, because y'all all know the end goal or the destiny that I have in mind, or we have in mind, for this here podcast, business, and things like that. So yes, we are here. Let's talk about reading. What does reading like? Reading is so necessary. I know growing up, we've been told like reading is fundamental. Where will you be without reading? And so many different wives' tales behind reading. And if you want to hide something from people, you go put it in a book, and so forth and so on. Like there's so many things that have to do with reading. And I honestly can say, like, I talked about who I am and the education that I have, from, of course, high school to grad school, of course, undergraduate. You have to have that before grad school. But I talked about matriculating through all of those, having those degrees, and so forth and so on. But I list those things now to say there was a period in time where I had not read fully a whole book, right? I had made it through grade school with reading only one book from front to back throughout, and that book was Holes. And I'm sure those that are my age have either read that book or saw the movie. If you're not, if you're younger than me, go check it out. It's a cool book. Obviously, if it's that one book that I've read from front cover to back cover all the way, it's obviously a good book, because that was something I wasn't doing. But then once I actually graduated from grad school, I had this idea, or in prayer or in something, there was a moment that took place, a light bulb that came on, of the benefits of reading. And it was like, no, I'm telling you, it was like the flow of information that came to me because of reading was just, oh my goodness. And for those that read, you already know of the benefits of reading and things like that, so you can attest to it. You can comment, you can chat and those various things, letting other people know of the benefit of reading. But I honestly did not fully grasp and or understand how beneficial reading actually is. Like I read enough to receive information and to have enough information to do what I needed to do, but I didn't read beyond that to be able to gain other insights or ideas behind the various subject matter that I was reading on or trying to learn about or gain information on. And even now, like, it's 2021 currently when this podcast goes out, and there's so many different ways to receive information. You can Google something and you'll get a plethora of articles or information pinging to the various topic that you're researching. There's books as well, but let's just talk about reading. And I'm talking about reading books, right? And so even reading books isn't just a chore. That was what I had the idea of what reading books were. It was just a chore. It was a means to an end to gain some information. And if I found faster ways to gain information, I went that route, obviously. But now I'm in it for the long haul. Like, I started reading, and I forgot like what year it was. It was probably 2006 16, which is probably like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I actually started reading and actually like read. And when I started reading, I started reading like a book a month, which was obviously something brand new. Then I started reading like 2 books a month, and then it never got beyond that. But 2 books a month, I was just knocking about bow, bow, bow. I started buying books. Like, what in the world, Ricky, buying books? Like, the only books I was buying before were Bibles, or things around the Bible so I could better understand the Bible. But I wasn't buying books. But then I started buying books, and I started loving buying books, and I started loving reading books, and I started realizing like how much information I was obtaining by reading these books. And it wasn't just reading to read, but I was reading, actually getting the knowledge of the author of the book, essentially, right? So this author could have spent 50 years, could have spent 40 years to be able to put knowledge behind what the experience they had into a book. However, me being able to read a book within a month, truly obtain the information, the great points, the high points, the good things from this person's experience that allow for me to now live where I am better, so I don't make those mistakes or those hiccups or those hardships and hard times that individual made over a 60-year, 50-year period, right? And so even thinking along those lines with reading, I started realizing like, man, it's putting me ahead. It's giving me the advantage. It's allowing me to not have to go through things that other people may have to go through because they're not taking the time to read or taking the time to understand why the world is the way it is. So I started like studying different subjects, right? It was a moment in time where I was heavy on faith. I was heavy on believing. I was heavy on thinking, which I am now. I'm heavy on believing in the mentals and things like that. So even like now, I'm reading a book called Limitless, which is a phenomenal book. Not endorsing this book. I'm not being paid to advertise this book, so I won't go any further with the name and the title and all those things. But this book is so phenomenal in the sense of what I'm able to obtain from reading it, as opposed to where I was before, and now knowing who I am and what I am because of the information that I have. And that's just what it is. Like, I started reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. I started reading about like finances, and of course all the different books around that area. You can just Google books on finances and you'll see the books that I probably read, probably have, and so forth and so on. But it's just so awesome. It's so awesome. Like, if I could just say it to you very plainly, reading is so awesome because it gives you the advantage of the author of the book, that they took whatever amount of time in their life to obtain all the information that they obtained, put in a book. And you, however old you are at this given moment in watching this video, get to get that book, read that book, and have that information whatever age you're at. Like, just think of how much of it, like, okay, if I was to put it in another way, okay, let's say LeBron James was able to put all of his experience, all of his skill, all of his charisma, and so forth and so on in a pill. And you as an individual were able to take this pill and be like LeBron James. How many of y'all would take it? Yep. I raised my hand. If you can't see it, I did. I raised my hand. I would take that pill, right? I don't have no business being on the basketball court, especially in the NBA. However, I would take that pill because I would have LeBron's athleticism, LeBron's charisma, LeBron's knowledge of the game, and so forth and so on. So I'm going to be like LeBron. Well, here it is. In a book, you have the ability to be like, think like, experience life like the author or authors that are penning the books that you get to read. So I say that to say it also matters too who are the authors. It's good to not just read a book, but to maybe do a little research. Who is the author of this book? What do they believe? What do they think about? How do they live life? Because essentially you're taking on the knowledge that they have, which may or may not produce outcomes in which they receives, right? So it does matter who is the author. It does matter who are the authors. It does matter those various things. However, do those research, but don't neglect reading a book. Like, if I could say anything, reading is so awesome, right? It takes you higher and higher. It makes you further allows you to see the world on another plane because you're able to obtain information in which you did not have before. If you're not reading books or if you're not reading, how are you getting information? I hope social media isn't your outlet for information. I hope word of mouth isn't your outlet for information, especially if people that you're talking to are not readers or truly understandings of how everything works, because having a full perspective of how things work, how things operate, will allow for your individual or your specific perspective to be amplified, right? So even where I am, right, I live in Florida right now, father of two, husband of one. This is like the crevice of my life, a believer in all those various things. Well, I get to read books from people in Singapore. I get to read books from people who are from Hawaii, right? Rich Dad Poor Dad do live in Hawaii, so forth and so on. So I get to have perspective of people, all that to say, of people from around the world. So I get a world's perspective on various aspects of life. Even reading books from people who are no longer here in this world, like those are awesome. You get to realize why certain things operate the way they operate, or founded the way they were founded, and why and how they're able to sustain the way they're able to sustain because of what somebody did 50, 60 years ago that you probably do not have the knowledge of if you're not reading books, right? You know what I'm saying? With the idea of think and grow rich, right? That was Andrew Carnegie and all that stuff back in the day, and Steel Workers and so forth and so on, right? So read the book. I'm just naming another book on finances that you can read. But I'm saying that to say reading is so awesome. I hope that not only do you come into the light that reading is necessary, but you start to seek after books that can help better you where you are to get you where you want to be, so you can not just live life or pursue destiny, but pursue it with information, pursue it with knowledge, pursue it with somewhere to go, right? And somebody that are able to share their experiences with you to get you there. One of the awesome public speakers, encouragers, and so forth and so on, Jim Rohn. He's worked and written some phenomenal books, done phenomenal speeches. Zig Ziglar, great guy. Speeches, his voice is very unique. You hear his voice once, you know who it is every time. But his books are awesome. See You at the Top, one of the best, I would say, motivating books that you can pick up. The list goes on, so forth and so on. I'm just telling you, I've done it. I've come into the light. I want you to come into the light. There's Audible. You may not want to physically pick up a book. You may want to listen to a book. Well, I challenge you. Like, I was doing Audible thinking, oh, I can do this while I'm in the gym. I can listen to books while I'm working out, so forth and so on. Well, I found myself starting to buy the books that I had listened to. That's just how good reading books are, because you may catch something while reading that you may miss while listening, right? Especially if you're listening while doing something else like I was, which most of us do. We don't listen to a thing, giving it our full attention. Even now, you may be listening, if you made it this far, you may be listening while doing other things like washing the dishes or working out or walking the dog or patting the baby or doing so many other things that your full attention isn't given into one specific space. Well, reading a book allows for you to sit down, narrow down your disturbances and things like that, but allow you to focus on the information and obtain what it is that the person and the authors wrote down for you to receive. Okay, so again, reading is so phenomenal. If there are some books that have impacted you that you say, yeah, I definitely say reading is the way to go, let us know. Drop them in the comments, hit me in the DMs, whatever it is. I'll make sure I share it. And if you want to know some books that I'm like you should read, like top 5 books, let me know. I'm so willing to share, but I don't want to share to force anything upon you. I would like to share with the idea that this is something that you want to receive. Okay, so with that being said, great people, read and again, I say you'll be happy that you read, okay? All right, great people. So I love you all. I appreciate you all. Thank you for conversing with me. Thank you for talking with me. But more importantly, thank you for listening to me, because that's what you did, okay? I talked, you listened, and we did some things in between. But at the end of the day, I love you all. I appreciate you all. See you on the next video. Until next time, don't just live life, ladies and gentlemen. Pursue destiny. And I challenge you to do it daily. All right, y'all. Peace.